back. Oh, goodness. Sorry, guys. Thank you for giving me a minute to break. Dealing with stuff.
Potty break, was it?
No, it was dealing with. I've got a car. My cars are getting detailed, and I had to run downstairs and deal with that. Then I had to talk to my wife about something else. Just a busy morning, and like I said, my normal times for live streaming are not working very good because of my mother's situation, so unpredictable. So I'm
I
doing
think
it
we're having
now.
fun tonight here.
What's going on?
I think we're having fun.
Yeah,
We
it's
managed to
working
talk
out.
about politics without screaming.
No, exactly. So where were we? We were talking about Risto. You were talking about Boethius. I
Yeah.
think.
So this dialogue between
Who is or isn't the Stoic?
him and Lady Wisdom, and he's perturbed at his situation, and she's kind of talking to him about, basically it's kind of a Buddhist idea, I would say. She's asking, well, what were you expecting? Maybe your expectations were the issue here. And so I would say to myself and to other Americans, because I think we're right now we're very tense about politics. And I would say to us, I think we need that dialogue. We need to read that. Someone needs to write this of, what were you expecting, dear Americans? And I think we kind of have this idea as America. We were expecting that we have like this amazing form of government.
Okay, Risto, I need you to just go ahead and keep talking. I'm going to try to listen as I can.
Okay.
I've got to deal with more stuff, so hang in there. Just keep talking, though.
I should get something to smoke with.
So Lady Wisdom is Sophia.
Yeah, Sophia. Yeah. And I think as Americans we bought into the idea that we're Americans and we have this amazing form of government, and that in that form of government we will, if it's run correctly, then things will go well for us and things are as they should be. And I think it's a little bit like Boethius before things fell apart for him, is things were going really well politically in his life. You know, he was super educated, his influence, everything was going well for him. But then when it fell apart, he fell apart. So I think we put our hope in our political systems running well. And I think that if you look at the history of politics and government and corruption, perhaps as Christians, that's a faulty place to put our hope. So it would be interesting to reread it through a political lens. And that to be more like the Amish people who are like, well, governments are going to do what governments do. We don't worry about that too much. We don't even get involved with it. Not that you couldn't be involved with it, but
Can I?
Yeah.
So I want to talk about passivity. I've been pondering this for quite some time. But before I get there, there's this really curious phenomenon. So he's talking to Sophia, but it's kind of in his head. But he's still getting answers. And something I've noticed I do. So we all have people we look up to. And I have people I look up to, and I have imaginary conversations with them. And they give me wisdom. And I'm like, where the hell is that coming from? Because it's not me who's saying this stuff to me. It's my imagination of someone I believe to have more wisdom than me. But they're answering me. And I'm learning. And I'm wondering if it's just me who does this. It sounds mad, I know, but
no,
it's a house of wolves or whatever.
I do it too. Like, my grandfather passed recently, and he was a very wise man. And gave me some wise advice. But I'll call him to mind, and when I call him to mind, I can almost hear him saying things, or even just consider his demeanor and who he was. And then I'm like, oh yeah, boy, I should really wise up in these areas. Like I'm being informed by him.
Mark, you just missed the woo moment. Oh, he can't hear us yet. Are we waiting for Mark to tune in? Can you hear us, Mark?
Yeah.
You just missed the woo moment.
What's the woo moment?
It's about people we look up to, and we have imaginary conversations with them, and we learn wisdom from them in these imaginary conversations. And it turns out it's not just me who does it. I'm sure everyone does it. And if you don't, it's a really healthy thing to do. And if it's your grandfather, that's super cool.
Yeah, I caught that part about your grandfather, Risto.
But I wanted to talk about passivity. I don't know how deep I should get into this. I'm studying finance at the moment, and there's this guy on FinTwit and various YouTube videos called Mike Green, and he's done a big study on passive investing, which is you basically give your money to BlackRock and they invest it for you. And if you want to take your money out, then they will de-invest it for you. And it's very price insensitive because it's just you put money in, they buy, you take money out, they sell. There's no concern about the price. And I'm pondering this, and I realized it's kind of a fractal thing. So if you invest your faith, shall we say, for want of a better word, in, say, Donald Trump, and you say he's our leader and he will save us, then you're basically giving away your power of authority to him, in the same way that if you invest in BlackRock, you're giving away your financial authority to, is it Larry Fink? I forget. Some guy. Or if you do the same but with Mandami, then you're giving away your control to him, and you're essentially making yourself passive and giving them all the activity. And in the same way that with passive investing, it will inevitably lead to a market bubble and a huge crash. It's the same with all these other aspects. I don't know if this makes any sense whatsoever to any of you.
Yeah. I mean that's exactly what's going on in the Constellation. Is Boethius's market crashed because his investment, his hope, was in the wrong place. And he was, he's a fairly wise man, but he was living a noble life, a good life. But I noticed because I grew up conservative, evangelical in that realm. And I noticed in my 30s, late 30s, that I think we were putting our hope too much in politics by the way that we spoke about things. And that's when I decided to stop voting myself in the presidential election. And I kind of hoped for my tribe of people that Hillary Clinton would win, because we somehow needed to be jostled from our hope in that if we elect this righteous Christian leader on our side, not that it would be bad, but that if we did this, elected this right person, that all would be well, as if it wasn't already well and God wasn't already writing the story.
Beautiful.
So I stopped voting, but I still pay way too much attention to politics and still get too invested. And it's not like it doesn't matter. This stuff does matter.
Well,
But the
and
question is
let
where
me
does,
welcome Claire.
yeah.
I'm sorry, I was busy and didn't see you in the back room there, Claire. But it is something to the the ability to ignore politics is something of a luxury. Because think if you're because we all know parts of the world where there's true chaos and where politics fails. When politics completely stops functioning normally, the world starts to look like Haiti, which is its own special hell.
Or worse.
Say what?
Or worse. Like
Maybe.
I said, my in-laws lived through the Khmer Rouge. Like
That's true. That's
I
true.
know these
Yeah,
stories.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So so it's a luxury to be able to just not pay attention to the news or politics. But I also understand that it is overwhelming and it is hard to discern signal from noise. Try to find people you can trust that help you. Your consciousness Congress or whatever they call that. I think Claire you have something to say there.
Yeah, I was going to say, Mark, that
Mark.
it's kind of a class thing. If you are in the lower classes, you will be complaining more about the government than if you were, comfortably enjoying the profits of BlackRock, for example. And then it becomes a sort of class thing, not to complain about the government because you're, so above the hoi polloi that you don't even know what they're complaining about. And I think there's quite a lot of people who take that attitude. Maybe
That's very English, Claire.
I'm being accused of that. E. Michael Jones, he accused me of that. It's like, what's all this? And I think it's because, I think it's something to do with the liberal, what was it? The Whig interpretation of history, which is, something that I guess is being questioned, that liberalism is really our religion. It's not really Christianity, and everything's so wobbly because the very foundations of liberalism is being questioned by so people. And as PVK said, Trump is the destroyer. He may be the destroyer of the liberal order, and I think a lot of us can't decide whether it's a good thing or not.
Well, I mean, it could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. The question is, what does that do to our world? What would it look like to be a Christian living through the Soviet Revolution or in China?
There are quite a lot of Christians in China. Apparently, Christianity is a very popular religion amongst the Chinese. I'm talking to this Chinese person on X, and he's Catholic, and he lives in London, and he's always complaining about the degeneracy of the British and how Europe will be taken over by the Muslims. And I said, well, but why are you still Catholic? Because, obviously Catholicism has failed the Europeans because it was taken over by Protestantism. So it makes no sense for you as a Chinese person to be Christian when, by rights, if you take your government seriously, you should be a Marxist. And but the thing is, people are just, they don't really make much sense. I mean, the curious thing about this chap is that he can sing the Latin Mass, and occasionally he does sing it, and he's actually quite educated and intelligent, except that I guess he's stuck in the UK now, and I think for family reasons doesn't want to return to China, and I'm afraid there's a lot of neurotic people on everywhere, and you can't quite make sense of their inconsistent belief systems, and probably they don't appreciate me for saying, well, if you say you believe it, X, then you must do Y, and the fact that they're not means you don't really believe it, I guess I am a bit a thorn in the side of people. But I think our beliefs should make sense and be logically coherent. And if it isn't, then there's obviously something wrong with it. And and I do feel very strongly that truth and logic are survival strategies, and if we keep ignoring them, we're just gonna crash and burn.
Well, it's interesting that Jesus came in the midst of, like, he came as a Jew in the midst of a politically pretty compromised situation for the Jews, right? They saw themselves, they were like the oppressed. You could even look at it as like they were the Palestinians of their day. I mean, they technically were, but where
Well,
they had
they've been
this,
taken over by the Romans, haven't they?
right.
So, and then and I think they got taken over by the Romans because they were fighting each other so much that they foolishly asked the Romans to come and settle some dispute for them, and then the Romans just took over. Isn't that the story? And
Yeah,
I wanted
I'm
to
not,
go back to your
yeah.
yeah, I mean, there's these sort of Roman-Jewish wars and Bar Kokhba and all that sort of thing. But I was interested to discover that, of course, Boethius, who was a Roman senator, was in fact Christian. But then everybody after the 4th century had to be Christian if they lived in Rome after Constantine Christianized the Roman Empire.
Well, he was, I don't know, he doesn't mention Christ so much in his work. So I don't know what his relationship was with Christianity in particular, but he definitely, there's questions about his belief system and how it interacted with Christianity, but he's definitely coming from a biblical theist perspective. He ends his book, spoiler alert, sorry, but the end of his book is the end of Ecclesiastes. And it's very much, I think he's cluing you into that's what's going on in his book. Ecclesiastes is trying to make sense of the messed up world and how things don't align and they should be this certain way, but they don't work this certain way. And then how does that all fit? How does this whole mess fit with God being on the throne? And it ends very simply, right? Which is we don't have to sort all of that out. We have what God has, I have what God has for me to do, which is to walk humbly with him, do right, care about the people around me, and I don't have to sort out the whole story.
No, you just have to obey and pass a test and go to the better place in the afterlife. That's a deal, isn't it?
Yeah, just trust God and follow him in the small, simple things, and I don't have to sort out the Roman Empire or the American Empire.
No, so but the deal remains. You have to obey, and if you obey more than you disobey, or you do more good than you do evil, I guess you get to the better place in the afterlife. But I think you do have to believe in the afterlife for the whole belief system to work. And I think we were talking earlier about well, maybe I'm getting confused about which stream I'm in, but the point is that the only way to hold our ruling classes to account is to say, look, do you believe in good being rewarded and evil punished? Because if you do, if you would like to believe that good will be rewarded and evil punished, then you logically and necessarily must believe in the Abrahamic God and the afterlife, because that's the only way to make it logical for you to believe that good will be rewarded and evil punished. I think that's a bargain, because otherwise it wouldn't be logical that good will, to believe that good will be rewarded and evil punished, because, well, who's going to be around to do it? And we don't need that much, good being rewarded, or evil punished in this life, historically.
Well, and the question is it my job to do that?
Well, not really. I mean, if it's all too much, I mean, the idea is that I guess we need to feel, good and safe, and we only feel good and safe if we're confident that we're following God's laws properly. But obviously we don't, we wouldn't if we know that, we've been, guilty of a whole bunch of sins that are mortal sins, and then we think, oh dear, perhaps I won't be going to the better place after all. So for peace of mind, we would have to feel that we are, in fact, obeying God's laws properly, so that we feel confident that we're doing the right thing and going to the right place.
My religion is a little more simple than that.
Oh, go on.
I'm trying to think how to put it into words. Does it hurt my Damn it. We don't have the words. What does my conscience say about this action I've just done? It doesn't like it. Don't do that again. It's really that simple for me.
But is your conscience in harmony with, your stated belief system? Because you might think, I felt good about killing that person, and you know that God has forbidden murder. So I think often people are conflicted that what they enjoy doing is in fact forbidden.
I don't think I could murder someone. I ought to be capable of it, but I don't think I am.
But there are complete defenses to murder, such as self-defense or provocation, or the usual legal defenses. But what I'm trying to say is that there are lots of things that we do enjoy doing, which we know are bad for us. So
Yeah, I like drinking.
And we sort of know, well, I shouldn't drink too much or at all, or whatever it is that we sort of know we shouldn't do. And then we think, it's not harming anyone, but then maybe we don't know the harm until it's too late, perhaps.
Maybe.
I think, well, as far as requiring the Abrahamic God, I think the Buddhists have managed to work around that with, it's called karma. It's Indian philosophy, so it precedes Buddhism. But the universe is just wired in a certain way that there is such a thing as skillful living and unskillful living, and that if you can't escape the consequences of your actions and choices, and so, but you will ultimately. It's the intrinsic in at least Mahayana Buddhism that you will ultimately level up through many lifetimes if necessary, and you will through your choices you can improve your lot in life, and the consequences are kind of built in. The judgment, so you don't have a judge. The judgment is just swing a hammer and hit your thumb is going to hurt. I mean, so it's that kind of logic, and I see something to it. In Tibetan Buddhism, or what's called Vajrayana, you can, through hard work and practice, actually become enlightened in a single lifetime. And the people I've met within Tibetan Buddhism are some of the wisest I've ever known people. So I don't I kind of think my worldview is a bit of a hybrid between Christianity and Tibetan Buddhism, because I think Christians are too quick to deny the reality of karma, and too quick to lean on what Bonhoeffer called cheap grace. And so, but I do believe also in grace, and I believe that Jesus's somewhat counterintuitive logic is really the only hope for humanity.
What do you mean by cheap grace?
Cheap grace is I can keep doing what I want to do and not face the consequences because I've got the right religious beliefs. I've been baptized, and I go to church, but while I might feel guilty about cheating on my wife, or whatever the sin is, there really aren't any eternal consequences for that behavior, and I can't buy that. That's what I mean by cheap grace. I can't be cruel. I can't be cruel without paying the piper. I will suffer for my see what I'm saying? So go ahead, Claire.
Yes, I was thinking of mortal sins, and adultery is apparently a mortal sin, isn't it?
Well, it depends on. See, you don't in Protestantism. You really don't have any such thing as mortal sin. It's not. It depends on which Christianity you're looking into. So Catholicism, yes, but that's not necessarily the case, and it's not like there aren't a shortage of Catholic adulterers in spite of the the mortality of that sin. So I wouldn't. My point being is it's not pick even a lighter sin. I'm just going to lie. I think lying or being, as I said, making excuses for bad behavior. I think more subtle. Let's take a more subtle form of greed, or a more subtle sin might be. I want to be a bully, so I want to be a bully, but I don't want to go to jail for it. So what do? I become a cop.
Yes. I believe the Catholics divide sins between mortal and venial sins, the sort of little ones, yes.
Yes.
But...
And in Buddhism, you don't really have rankings of sins either. You really just have skillful and unskillful, enlightened and unenlightened. And yet they can. I'm sure they can. Real Buddhist scholars can get very intricate. There's a lot. I mean, it's a very complicated, intricate system of thought and ethics.
10 minutes, children.
But it's almost bedtime.
Oh, you heard that?
Yeah.
So we got to wrap up, anyways. I've been going almost 3 hours. But
yes,
yeah, it's. I definitely am a fan of accountability. And whether you call it karma or you call it just God's will. I mean, it's just we are free, but we're also responsible. I don't,
Yes.
And yet we're at the same time there has to be room for grace because we're all weak, and we all have our points of weakness where we will fail, almost certainly.
I mean, let me run this idea by you, Mark and Mark. that you know, perhaps we're all forced to play this cosmic game of snakes and ladders, and the ultimate goal is of course, you know, to get to the end of the game, to be the one first, and but in the meantime, as we, you know, live our lives, we can sometimes go up a ladder and sometimes we come down, because we've been consumed by a snake, and the way of avoiding this is maybe easier if you actually believe that, you know, there is an all-knowing God who knows your heart and mind, because under the system of reincarnation, it's not that scary. It's not that scary that, well, you know, if you be naughty, you'll you know, get a slightly worse form of life than the one you're enjoying now. So it's not that scary. So the idea of, you know, burning eternally in hell would focus the minds of people more and make them more likely to obey the laws. And that may explain why the European or the white man is, you know, more organized in his imperialism than other peoples. Because organized religion is just better at organized violence, and organized violence is useful for empires.
Mark, do you have a thought on that before I respond?
Sorry, this is a joke, Claire, but you obviously never came back as an ant at one point.
As an ant?
Yes.
I wouldn't know. Maybe I did come back, and, you know, slowly I just, you know, came back to being human again. I mean, who knows? But I might do something terrible, and back I am back, you know, to being an ant in this cosmic game of snakes.
Very good ants, I'm sure. There was something else I was going to say, but I just knocked it out of my own head. Silly me.
Yeah, give me just a second to respond to my daughter real quickly, and then I'll respond to you guys.
I mean, but would you agree, Horseman, that this reincarnation thing is not that scary? It's only you will burn eternally in hell and never. That's scary. So if you did believe in it, well, you would be scared. Or even if you didn't believe it, it might be just annoying that people around you say, "Oh, Mark, you did this terrible thing. You will go to hell and stay there forever." And even if you didn't believe it, it's kind of, you know, status lowering, and, you know, not the sort of thing you want people to say about you.
You're probably right on this, Claire.
I would say it's a lack of imagination, frankly. Sorry, Claire. I mean that somewhat in jest. The Buddhists I hung out with. Okay, one last thought here. Okay, the Buddhists I hung out with were real serious, and I took it seriously. And very traditional. He's probably one of the more traditional style of Tibetan Buddhists. He completed his training during his 20-year stint in a Chinese labor camp. So, and he was very serious character, but also one of the most lighthearted, sweetest men you could ever meet. The view that I took away from Tibetan Buddhism is this life, this human incarnation is very precious. It's a precious opportunity, and it is not something to be wasted. And so you work really hard at not wasting it. Sloth is a major sin in Tibetan Buddhism, because it really leads to all sorts of unwanted, undesirable consequences. The fear or the anxiety that we have to deal with in terms of karma is that it may take me a million lifetimes to recover from the sins that I indulge in this lifetime. Because it's only in this human incarnation with this brain and this consciousness that is a kind of the mind of the universe that we inhabit in our bodies, can we actually achieve enlightenment. An ant with an ant brain can't achieve enlightenment, even though an ant with an ant brain can in its own way. How do you climb out of being an ant? Well, in Buddhist lore, how do you climb out of being being in hell? You have a moment of compassion. You look to the person next to you. You're both burning in hell. You both are desperate for water, and in a brief moment in hell, you decide to share a drop of water. Say you're in a hell. Let's just imagine. Let's just create a little mind game here. Yeah, you're two people are in hell, and you're suffering, and maybe you get a ration of one drop of water per day in hell, and suddenly you just have a moment. It's like 10,000 years you're there, right? And then it's like on 10,000 years, and the next day you wake up and decide, this is just got to end. I just want it to be over. So I'm going to share my drop of water with the person next to me, so they'll get 2 drops of water. Well, that moment of compassion, that brief expression of kindness, is what frees you from the hell you're in. Now, this is just, I'm not saying this is an actual story in Buddhism, but it's the principle. You break out of hell in this lifetime. If you like people, people talk about the loneliness crisis and this crisis and that crisis. Well, most crises are broken out of in this lifetime by finding opportunities to show kindness and express compassion and love. Now, most of your life may be just as, you may go through your day, 23 hours out of 24, being a selfish, narcissistic, wicked ass. But if you snap out of it, you don't, Jesus even says this. He talks about showing, there's certain acts of generosity in this lifetime that you won't lose the merit. It's this merit that you keep, and that merit of kindness, even if it's not the dominant feature in your life, that's still treasure in heaven from Christ's point of view, and it's still treasure in heaven from the Buddhist point of view. They just don't look at it the same way. This is meritorious behavior or conduct that helps you level up in Buddhism and also frees you in Christianity. That's how we break out of our hells, and how we level up in life. Go ahead, Mark. I hope that's communicating. I'm at the end of the live stream.
Absolutely beautiful.
Oh,
I think it's a good place to end this live stream.
Yeah, let's do last thoughts because we are at 3 hours. Claire?
I would just repeat my snakes and ladders theory of reincarnation. In that, I guess if you're Hindu or Buddhist, you would be reincarnated. But if you do finally get to the stage where you are in a position to choose a religion that promises heaven or hell, then that's the final stop. And I guess if you don't quite get it, you will end up in hell. But the idea is that you are reincarnated into a more sophisticated or more powerful form of religion until you get to the final choice, and that's your last chance. So that's my little idea. I think I may not have explained it terribly well, but
I think no, you did as usual. Time. You did well. No, thank you, Claire. And it's a continuing dialogue, and especially in the corner because we have our people who are universalists, and they're always trying to explain their position. and there is, I mean, so there are many warnings in Scripture, Christian Scripture, about the consequences of sin, but then there are also these hints, these promises that we're all going to come around to God at some point in the end. Every knee shall bow, every tongue will confess that Jesus Christ is Lord. Now, what does that mean? You know, well, just, I mean, it's an ongoing dialogue, so it doesn't end here. So, thanks, Risto, for joining us. Mark, did you have a final thought?
Yeah. There's this. Let's call it the limits of Sam Harris. And it's the idea that everything has to be logical. And there are so many things that, how to say, transcend logic. But if you're limiting yourself to only logical thought and only logical speech, then you're going to miss the transcendent.
Agreed. All right, let's end it there. Guys,
all right. Love you all.
God bless. Let's play just a little bit more of Brother Otis Lester's church worship service at Big Jenny, West Virginia.